I'm Roy Gomez with Humboldt Nutrients. Humboldt Nutrients, we've been in the research and development stage for about 8 years now. We went to market with our products 4 years ago. So research and development took a while before we were confident enough to actually have a product line and get it out to the people. So I'll start off with my favorite, actually, is our organic line. Coming from Humboldt County, organics is really predominant. We have a majority of organic farmers in Humboldt County, so this was really my stepchild, I guess. So we have an organic grow and an organic bloom. Those are your base nutrients. And one thing about organics is organics are the availability of organic fertilizers and guanos and things like that are heavily reliant on beneficial bacteria and organisms to break them down. Similar to our own digestive system, when we eat food, there's all kinds of enzymes and bacteria in our mouths and in our guts that help break down the food we eat and make it soluble to our bodies and digestible to our bodies. When you're growing organically, you really need to keep that in mind. Organic fertilizers are dependent on that activity just as much as chemical fertilizers are dependent on a chelate. You have chemical fertilizers which are soluble and available instantaneously to the plant, mainly due to the chelate that's used in there. So the actual chelate in an organic setting are the beneficial bacteria in the organisms. So with that in mind, soil really is the best medium to use with our organic program. And keep in mind that bacteria need soil to actually thrive and be able to proliferate. So organic grow is made up of ocean fish, cane molasses, yucca, seaweed, bentonite, and Quillaja saponaria, which is actually a saponin similar to yucca saponins. So it's a food source. The Quillaja and the molasses and the carbohydrates are a food source for the biologicals. And it's a 3-1-3, and that's the grow. The bloom is a 0-10-0 with 10% calcium. It's derived from soft rock phosphate and kelp and yucca. So that's the grow and that's the bloom. These are Mycomadness. Mycomadness is 19 species of bacteria, 18 species of mycorrhizae, 2 trichoderma species. There's a biostimulant package also, which consists of soluble kelp, humic and fulvic acid, vitamin B1, and vitamin C. Now, Mycomadness is a combination, obviously, of mycorrhizals and beneficial bacteria. And it's really important to have both of those things in your blend, as opposed to having one product that's mycorrhizal and one product that's bacteria. They really are necessary to have them both, because as you have bacteria breaking things down so rapidly, you need the mycorrhizal fungi and the actual mycorrhizal, which this is in spore form. The mycorrhizals are in spore form. The actual mycorrhizal isn't created until the spore touches the root. And once the root touches the spore and makes contact, a symbiotic relationship occurs and a filament occurs from that relationship, which spits out all these little feeder roots and increases the root mass. So when you have bacteria breaking things down so rapidly, it's really important to have the channels for them to be uptaken, which is where the mycorrhizals come in. So another thing to think about with the soluble is they're in a dormant state. Pretty much all our biologicals are in a dormant state for shelf stability. In order for them to be able to be on the shelves and be stable, they have to be dormant so the product isn't dead when you get it and use it. So you can imagine being frozen. And when you're frozen and say you wake up years later, like Ted Williams or something, you're going to be hungry, you're going to want to proliferate, you're going to want to reproduce possibly. So what we recommend in our whole organic program, and we've seen better results doing this, we've tested this not only on the plants, but we've tested it with microscopes. If you allow our organic program to brew for a 24-hour period, you're going to see more activity by the time you actually apply it onto your plants. So when you blend in our organic grow, organic bloom, the additives and the biologicals, and allow it to brew for a 24-hour period, it actually increases the biological activity in that 24-hour period. Because when your biologicals first touch the water, that's when they become active, and they start to wake up. But they're a bit sluggish because they've been frozen. They've been in a dormant state. So giving it an opportunity to actually wake up, reproduce, feed off of the organic fertilizers and organic additives, by giving them that opportunity, they actually will increase in numbers, which is really what you're trying to do when you're using organic fertilizers. You're trying to increase the biological activity so your plant can uptake the nutrients properly. So that's something we've actually tested, with the microscope, and people out there are definitely welcome to test it, and they'll see the difference from the time that they add everything into their reservoir, and from that time to the plate count when they actually apply it, when they're ready to apply it 24 hours later, you'll see an increase in activity, which is important. One of the questions we get pretty often is, can you use our organic fertilizing program in hydroponics? And that really is kind of it's an oxymoron, so to speak. When you're growing hydroponically, you have an inert medium, which means your medium has no nutritional value whatsoever to the plant. It's there to hold its root zone and to hold sometimes it retains water, sometimes it doesn't, depending on the medium you're using, whether it's hydroton or cocoa or whatever you're using. But when you're not fertilizing, when you're not actually feeding with fertilizer in the root zone, the biologicals don't have anything to feed off of. So they actually, they'll feed off of everything really, really quick. So make a long story short, we don't recommend you recirculate or use our organic program in anything other than soil. You'll see way better results. When you're using an inert medium, it really requires that you have soluble and chelated fertilizer to compensate basically for the lack of nutrition in that inert medium. So the honey ES, this is our organic honey ES. There's two different honeys. There's the hydrocarbs, which is more for hydroponics, and then there's the ES, which is the organic carbohydrate source. So this is really thick. It's yucca, molasses, Gilaha saponaria. There's some seaweed and some fish also. So this is the ES, which stands for extra strength. And that's the carbohydrate source, which beneficial bacteria, organisms, and enzymes all feed off of sugars that the root zone puts off. So mycorrhizals and beneficial bacteria, the symbiotic relationship they form with the plant is that the plant feeds them carbohydrates. And in turn, what they do for the plant, they stay in the root zone because they're getting fed carbohydrates, and in turn they break down organic matter and fertilizers so the plant could actually uptake it. They break it down into a soluble form for the plant. So when a plant's trying to draw all of its carbohydrates up to the fruit, it's trying to bring its Brix levels up, which Brix levels are the determination of sugars in any given fruit or plant. So when a plant's trying to bring its Brix levels up, it's starting to fruit, obviously. So when it's pulling and drawing up those carbohydrates, it now is trying to channel as much of that energy up to the fruit. So what ends up happening when you have a good ecosystem of beneficial bacteria and microorganisms that are also reliant on that carbohydrate source, they end up in competition with the plant that's actually trying to draw it up. So the best thing to do is to supplement in a carbohydrate for those biologicals to actually feed off of that and leave the plant alone and let it do what it wants to do as far as carbohydrates. And in turn, what they do is break down those carbohydrates and offer more for the plant to actually uptake instead of actually leaching off of it as much. So carbohydrates are important if you want to get your Brix levels up, if you want to have a higher sugar content